Hello and welcome to Nerds Ending Youth Homelessness. I'm Liz Harding and I use she and they pronouns, and I am the Data and Evaluation Director at Away Home Washington. I'm super excited to let you in today to see everything that the data team is working on at the moment, how we use data and technology to reduce and end youth homelessness, how we coach our communities to know every young person in real time in their community experiencing homelessness, and how we are coaching them to reduce those numbers of young people experiencing homelessness down to functional zero, as well as a lot of the tools that we have created in softwares like Tableau, and how we have set up AWS and other infrastructure to support our work in our communities. So come along on this journey with us as we take you inside what we've been working on. An event sorry, I need to start again.
Recharging energy levels.
As for our agenda today, first I'm going to be doing a really brief introduction of our team and our work. Tammy is going to tell us about by name lists because they are foundational to our work. And you are going to hear directly from our amazing community folks, Julius and Sam, who are working on the ground with data to make really positive changes for young people in their communities. They'll be in conversation with Alicia. And then Hannah and Visesh will talk about how we are scaling our work with new technology, including AWS and Tableau server. After that, Hannah is going to do a really cool dashboard show and tell as well.
Let's talk data. You can cut the last line.
Love. No, leave that last part in. Let's talk data.
So our data team at Away Home Washington is super unique, and folks are going to introduce themselves as they come in through the agenda. But I really wanted to talk briefly about the structure of our team because it's really cool. We call Tammy and Alicia data coaches, and Hannah and Visesh are our data analysts and data scientists. Coaches do a lot of the community-facing capacity building work, and the analytics folks do a lot of the infrastructure and tool building. However, what's really cool about our team is that we've built up coaching and technical skills across the whole team. So we have Alicia and Tammy doing projects in Tableau, deep diving into data, and we also have Hannah and Visesh coaching certain communities. This is what makes our team really skillful and versatile. And excitingly, we do have one vacant position for a fellow, which we are hoping to fill at the end of 2022 and early 2023. And you'll see in the middle, we have Joshua Fike, who is a member of staff at the Washington State Department of Commerce, who we work really closely with because they are the Homeless Management Information System, HMIS, administrator for 6 of our anchor communities. So we work really closely with Commerce to make sure our anchor communities have all the data infrastructure that they need in order to account for all the young people who are experiencing homelessness in real time, and eventually to reduce those numbers down to functional zero. So we work really closely together to ensure that we're clearing any access barriers to technology and data that's making it difficult for them to set up their by name lists. So we have quite a few major areas of work now. The scope of the team has grown exponentially really in the last year. Before, it was just Visesh and I, and we only had capacity to work on the Anchor Community Initiative. but we have expanded to supporting all the data infrastructure needs for what we call the Homelessness Prevention and Diversion Fund, or HPDF, which is a flexible fund that provides low barrier financial support to young people who are at risk of homelessness or already experiencing homelessness to get them housed outside of the homeless system. Hannah will show you the dashboard later for this project. We're also starting a statewide technical assistance program where ultimately our vision is that any community in Washington could use our tools to set up a by name list and submit data to a statewide dashboard where we would all be able to track our progress towards ending youth homelessness in any county and as a state in real time. Also excitingly is that we are now able to take on research projects that fill critical gaps in our field in Washington. For example, we realized that there was no research telling the story of young people in Washington during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we worked with Tableau and Curious to create our COVID impact dashboard, which was widely used at the last legislative session. Again, Hannah will show you this one later too. So without further ado, I would love to hand you off to Tammy, who is going to introduce herself and talk about the bread and butter of our work with anchor communities, the by name list.
Thanks, Liz. As Liz said, I'm Tammy Riles. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Data Capacity Building Coordinator here at Away Home, Washington. I've worked in the homelessness sector for a little over 5 years, starting as a service provider in Pierce County. In Pierce County, I helped oversee many projects and their data. As part of that, I created a new data collection process for that community and became an expert in HMIS systems. A huge part of the data team here at Away Home Washington's work is helping communities build quality by name lists, or BNL, as you'll hear from us. These BNLs are reports or lists that come from the community's HMIS system or Homeless Management Information System. And they are real-time data as opposed to once yearly, such like the point-in-time count, which means communities can also rapidly react to what they are seeing and know every youth and young adult that is homeless, doubled up, couch surfing, or fleeing domestic violence in their community in real time. By having this real-time data, communities are able to house young people by case conferencing, highlighting resource gaps, and work on equity issues in the system. We create data transformation tools that help communities take their data from an HMIS export or a report that is hard for them to interpret to these system level data points so that they can see young people or how young people are moving through their homelessness system, such as inflow, outflow, and actively homeless. This allows them to focus their improvement efforts. We also make sure communities are disaggregating their data by age group, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, so they can see where disproportionality exists and they can start to take action. So next up, I am proud to introduce Alicia, who is going to deep dive with community folks Sam and Julius into those tools that I was just talking about on how Spokane and Walla Walla are using them to change the way young people are served in their communities.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Pritchett. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a data capacity building coordinator with Away Home Washington. And I coach communities on how to set up their by name list infrastructure and how to increase data literacy. And I previously worked in Walla Walla with the first cohort of anchor communities as a housing navigator. And I collected and inputted client data for our BNL. And I also worked in the data work group. And our focus was on ensuring that we not only achieved and maintained quality data, but that we increased our data literacy and standardized systems so that it could be sustained over time. A by name list is a shift from our usual way of collecting and using data in the homeless response system. Because of this, there are difficulties in creating and maintaining one, such as data consolidation. A by name list needs to include all of the young people experiencing homelessness in a community at any given time, which means bringing all of the data together from different access points across the county into a single list. Transformation. The way that data is pulled and viewed from an HMIS system traditionally does not allow for communities to view the data in its aggregated form at a system level, meaning looking at inflow, active, and outflow. And to do this manually would take hours of staff time. But there is exciting news for balance of state communities, though. Commerce and BitFocus are working on creating an HMIS report that will do just that level of transformation. But our non-balance of state communities will still require a tool to do this level of transformation and aggregation on their own. And data quality. A by name list is only as good as the quality of data contained in it. Data entry and maintenance from providers, in addition to a logic flow that aligns with how the community operates, is key. And communities need to trust that their data is reliable and accurate. And troubleshooting. Because there are multiple factors that can throw data reliability off, the ability to troubleshoot errors quickly is important. And finally, utility. The entire goal of having a BNL is to be able to use the data in a way that drives tests of change and houses young people. And we want communities to use their learnings from their data in real time to inform their work so that they can quickly pivot when needed. And because of all of these additional considerations, it was clear that without data tools designed for these different processes, it would be incredibly difficult and time-consuming for communities to create and maintain a quality by name list. And here today, we have two special panel guests, ACI coordinators from the first cohort of anchor communities, to talk about their experience in working with Away Home Washington to tailor data tools to their community's data needs and how it has ultimately impacted their work towards ending youth and young adult homelessness. And they're also going to demonstrate how these tools are being used in their community. And I'm going to invite Sam Jackal from Walla Walla, Washington, to introduce herself and tell us about her role in the ACI.
Hi, thanks, Elisha. My name is Sam Jackal. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the Anchor Community Initiative Coordinator here in Walla Walla and also the Homeless Housing Coordinator. So I work with our data system, and for the Anchor Community Initiative work, I help to facilitate and convene the core team and work together to drive us towards setting and then working towards our goals.
Thank you, Sam. And Julius Henriksen from Spokane, Washington, please introduce yourself and your role.
Hello, my name is Julius Henriksen. My pronouns are he and him, and I am the Anchor Community Initiative Coordinator here in Spokane. I have been the coordinator for about a year now, almost a year, and in my prior role at the outset of our enrollment in this initiative, I was tasked with building out and maintaining our by name list, as well as facilitating case conferencing, and then became the fiscal administrator for our HPDF as well.
Thank you. And Julius, I'm curious, how have the tools Away Home Washington developed in partnership with you changed the way that you transform and use your data in your community?
Yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, we used to engage in a manual practice to manipulate the raw data we would receive from our HMIS system in order to produce a by name list that was functional and could be utilized by the community. It would take several hours, anywhere from like 6 to 10 hours a month in order for me to produce that. And if we needed to make any changes or modifications, then re-engaging in that process took an equal amount of time. So the time saved in being able to update and change and work our system and produce our list is huge. The other main piece is that with an automated process, it's a lot more consistent. Our data reliability score has stabilized a lot more regularly because we're not subject to human error. And as we were. As you can see from the demonstration here, this is our logic document. I just wanted to kind of demonstrate this to show the nuance that goes into how we process that data. Altogether, there are 7 primary processes, each with several smaller steps that are included. What we're looking at here on this Excel spreadsheet is a copy of the raw data report that we receive out of HMIS. In this particular report, there are about 773 different enrollments. Not all of them would be considered active by the logic that we've outlined before. And so we would include 3 different functions in order to determine what someone's most recent or top enrollment is, so that we were getting the most accurate and actionable information possible. And then it would require an incredible amount of filtering. At the bottom of this screen, you can see multiple tabs. There are approximately 29 different tabs that were being created, a lot of copying and pasting in order to disaggregate the information we were looking at in order to produce the reporting requirements that Away Home Washington requests from us, as well as to produce the by name list in a way that gives us quality data and quality information to act on as a community. I would then, after producing all these tabs, cross-reference with 2 different master lists in order to track young people who are returning from housing and be able to provide some historical context to this data as well. Again, we want to make sure that our list is complete and consistent as possible. And so all of this took an incredible amount of time. As I said, approximately 6 to 10 human hours in order to produce our document for monthly reporting. And now we have automated process using a Python script and Tableau, which takes approximately 5 seconds to produce. I upload the most recent raw data report. I upload those master lists that I just referred to. And then at that point, the list is produced and then uploaded into Tableau, and we can begin our visualization and our conversations as a community. As seen here, that's the transformation tool.
That's great. It's really cool to see how far you've come. Like, I'm thinking about how many hours that would take to transform that report into your by name list data, and then now being able to just do it in the span of a couple minutes. That's amazing. And so, what does this added capacity in your team mean for your community?
Yeah, it allows our team to dig a lot deeper into their curiosities. Away Home Washington's done a fantastic job of taking our monthly data reports and producing some dashboards, and our community has additional questions that those run charts can't always necessarily answer. So this gives us the opportunity to look into those things ourselves. We can look at information on the project level. We can look at information on the actual program level if we want to look at a little bit deeper at which rapid rehousing projects are seeing more results and how can we replicate those successes in other programs across the community, things like that. It allows us to dig a lot deeper and get a lot more creative. It's also produced a new foundation for us to refine and further test our by name list. When I was having to spend 6 to 10 hours manipulating an Excel report, if we wanted to make a change, it would take a lot longer for us to go there. And we were only able to do so much through Excel functions. With the sophistication that this Python script tool has provided us, it's created a new baseline for us to go further and further and increase our efficacy with this resource that we have in our community.
Love that. Thanks, Julius. And Sam, you and I have both been on Walla Walla's data journey together, and I just want to raise up the role that quality data has had in Walla Walla's 60% reduction in youth and young adult homelessness over the past year. So could you tell us a story of building your own data capacity and then the evolution of the data work group in Walla Walla?
Thanks, Elisha. Yes, I'm excited to share about how Walla Walla has built data capacity with support from Away Home Washington. Prior to some of the support and the partnership between Away Home Washington, Commerce, and Balance Estate anchor communities, we really struggled to leverage our data in a meaningful way. Walla Walla established a data work group consisting of several folks so that all this work was not just on one individual, and to allow for more capacity locally around data literacy and Tableau skills, which has also helped tremendously with sustainability. I'd love to briefly show you how it is that Walla Walla has transformed how we use data to inform our work by doing a brief demo. Prior to learning how to leverage Tableau, we were pulling raw data from our homeless management information system via the Looker platform. We were attempting to include a number of table calculations within Looker to filter the data, but still had to spend hours manually filtering data each month. The table calculations were also not complex enough, so we pivoted, and the Away Home Washington data team worked with us to establish the logic flow we needed and help to incorporate that within our Tableau tool. Now we pull a Looker report each month of county-level data for folks up to age 25. We are able to then upload that report into Tableau, and within seconds, our monthly dashboard is updated, which is what you're seeing here. We can then see a detailed snapshot of our inflow each month, our active numbers, as well as our outflow. Furthermore, we're able to take a more detailed look at the demographic breakdown for each of these categories as well by looking at race and ethnicity, age group, sexual orientation, and gender identity. This helps us understand where in our system disproportionality exists. We have another dashboard that allows us to drill down even further within our inflow, active, and or outflow categories. This dashboard has been especially helpful for our core team and Youth Action Board, as it is an accessible way to identify and explore areas of improvement within our housing continuum. For instance, we can look at our outflow and explore up to 2 dimensions at once. The dimensions we can choose from include race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, age, project type, project name, event date, and exit destination. What we are looking at right now is our outflow by exit destination and project name. This allows us to see the exit destinations for that month, as well as the programs that youth and young adults were exited from. Please note that in certain instances, a young person can be enrolled in more than one program, for example, coordinated entry and street outreach. And the null that you see exists here because this young person aged out prior to securing a permanent housing exit. This doesn't mean that we stop working with folks that age out. They just won't continue to be counted within our youth and young adult data set. It's our hope to replicate this tool and the system level processes across populations. This level of data allows us to understand how programs are working together, and it also gives us an opportunity to get curious around programs that exist in our community, but that aren't showing up in permanent housing exits. From here, we can work across organizations and programs and alongside young people to identify what is working and what isn't. From there, we can evaluate if and how our data is impacted by the changes that we make. These tools and the data literacy skills that have resulted and that continue to blossom have led to an increased understanding of the importance of system-level changes, cross-community problem solving, and the practice of curiosity.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you both for being here and giving us a peek into how data tools are not only transforming your by name list data, but also how they're transforming the way in which your communities are reducing and ending youth and young adult homelessness. You both are pioneers in this work, and we really appreciate you. And next up, I'd like to pass the mic on to the two data geniuses behind these innovative tools you've just witnessed and several more, the amazing Hannah and Visesh.
Thanks, Elisha. Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Andrus. I am the Data Solutions Manager at Away Home Washington, and I use the pronouns she and her. And I'm going to be talking to you today about the scaling up of our data infrastructure. And so I'm going to be talking through just our vision on bringing some of this data infrastructure to Tableau Server and how we're hosting it. And so the main purpose why we would be embarking on this is to further support our first cohort, so cohort 1, in their data infrastructure needs, and setting up the infrastructure for cohort 2. And in order to do that, we've created an environment that hosts reports, data sets. It's capable of hosting those data sets. We haven't set that up quite yet, but hosting reports on a centralized site, something like Tableau Server, that's encrypted and secure, and so the data is protected, and having the communities be able to go onto that site individually and pull those reports from their individual community sites. So we host Tableau Server on AWS, so it's a cloud-hosted instance on EC2, and the purpose for that was really to prep some of our data infrastructure to be able to be queried through ETL processes, which is what we'll hear from Visesh about in just a little bit. But we wanted to be able to set that up so that the data is easily queryable through something like a Tableau prep flow that we can now take and manipulate or clean up the data, if you will, before putting it through to our dashboards. And then the ACI dashboards are really the output of that entire process, being hosted on a variety of different sites, either our resource hub or the individual communities themselves engaging in that dashboard. And this last step here in the dashboards, the ACI dashboards, we host them on not only our resource hub, but the communities themselves have access to those dashboards to kind of play around with the visualizations and the different lenses used to kind of get in further insight into what their data is telling them. And without further ado, I am going to transition off to Visesh to demo a super cool product he's been working on.
Hey everybody, this is Visesh Dan. I prefer he, him, his pronouns, working as a data science manager at Away Home Washington. And let's talk data. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Sam and Julius, and everyone from our wonderful communities. This level of innovation would not have been possible without your constant support and expertise. We have definitely come a long way from working with just spreadsheets to using Python-based solutions and standalone applications. In doing so, we have reduced processing times by almost 99.99%. But yet, we have not stopped, because why to stop when we can always strive for making things better? Which is why I'm proud to announce that Away Home Washington is going to deploy a whole new data infrastructure for both Cohort 1 and Cohort 2 communities. Let's have a look at how easy it's going to be to get a functional by name list. The entire ETL, or extract, transform, load process, can be broken down into 4 phases. First is downloading or extracting the standardized monthly data reports from HMIS. Because of obvious data privacy purposes, we won't be demonstrating that step, but let's look at the remaining 3. Second step is updating the monthly data source on Tableau server. This process can be carried out in multiple ways, but to keep things simple and reduce dependency, we are using Tableau Desktop to do so. Once the existing data sources gets updated with the new month's data, the next step is to transform it into a BNL, or by name list, by deploying the data transformation flow. This flow was built on Tableau Prep, which is now published on our Tableau server, and it is made available for each of our communities. And that's all. With that, you now have a functioning by name list. Wait a second, did I miss something? Yes, the final and the most important step after doing all of this, let me give you a glimpse of the final product. This database will get appended with new rows every time the flow will be run, and can then be connected to dashboards for mining trends and conducting deeper analysis. I hope that you all had a fun ride so far and are now prepped up for Hannah to do a show and tell of some of our Tableau dashboards. Back to you, Hannah.
Thanks, Visesh. It is not lost on me how much time and effort was spent to create something like that. For those of you who don't work in ETL processes frequently, this is a prime example of how innovation can create that level of automation that frees up your time to do other things, since your resources is pretty scarce, or you, you don't have, I had it until the last word. Now, I am going to be demonstrating a couple of our products that we use at Away Home Washington and that the communities use to understand their data within their specific communities. And we're first going to take a look at our Homelessness Prevention and Diversion Fund dashboard, or HPDF is what we are calling it. And this is a Flex Fund, as I'm sure you are aware, have already heard. We are displaying the information on this dashboard in a way that disaggregates by or stratifies by specific demographics. So age group, gender identity, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, parent or parenting. And then we have a couple other demographics that we have included in here, like living situation at entry and fleeing domestic violence and sex trafficking, that are just another way or another lens to view the data. And so to orient you how this dashboard can be interpreted, the legend here in the center with all of the human icons are representative of the demographics. So whichever demographics you switch to, your legend will reflect the categories within those demographics. Once you have your demographic sort of set and you have a specific county that you want to look into, now you can interpret the values or the visualizations that the dashboard is intended to show. And with this date slider, you can choose the specific date range, or if you wanted to look at the entirety of the program, you're able to do that too with the slider. We look at things like the number of households served, and households served being a distinct count so that we're not duplicate counting some of these submissions. We look at average house cost per household stratified by that legend. So again, you can see the colors associated with the icons associated with the demographics that we have filtered. And then total remaining funds, just because there is a finite amount of funding for each of these communities, and this is a way to keep track of where they sit. A couple other interesting visualizations that we have are looking at the request types by what they're requesting, so the funds that they're requesting. So here you'll see rental assistance and arrears is the primary request type in Spokane County. If we were to look at Yakima, we would see it shift a little bit, but still rental assistance and arrears is going to be the primary category for that community as well. We have some other indicators down here, HPDF performance, things looking at median processing time, our actual dollar utilization, and then providers that are the most frequent requesters. We like to elevate and celebrate those providers that are utilizing the fund in a frequent way. So this is, again, hosted on our ACI Resources Hub, our HPDF public dashboard. It's available to anyone to use and to peruse. And this is just one example of how we use data that has been set up through our infrastructure with things like Jotform or Google Sheets to produce something that is able to create inferences and discussion around what your community is doing. This second dashboard here was a product created out of a partnership between Away Home Washington and Kiris, who helped create this dashboard off of census data that was being collected on a biweekly basis. And it's still being collected on a biweekly basis. The survey data that this dashboard is reflective of was collected at the census level. So anyone who had an email that was registered with the census was sent out this survey early in the first parts of COVID back in March of 2020 and has continued to this day. And so we keep this dashboard updated because we believe that there are some important insights that we can glean from this dashboard related to youth and young adults in the state of Washington and how they've been coping with this pandemic and sort of anticipating those needs in advance. This gives a good insight into. And so as an example, this is the landing page, and this is also on our website, the Away Home Washington or awayhomewa.org website that we will have links to that you have access to as well. And this, as I said, gets updated on a bi-weekly basis. I'm going to show you just a couple of these pages and sort of the layout the information that it's showcasing. So if we're looking at this impact on employment as a specific page, specific questions asked to 18 to 24-year-olds in the state of Washington about the impact of COVID-19 on employment. Filterable by similar demographics, except race, ethnicity, income bracket, and education level are the three breakdowns you can sort of view this information with, and it kind of gives you a sense of just kind of expected and anticipated job loss versus actual job loss, and sort of the fears around employment throughout the pandemic. Another lens into this data that's collected, we're looking now at the impact on housing security, again, for 18 to 24-year-olds in the state of Washington, looking at the type of housing within that category of individuals, their likelihood of eviction or foreclosure, and then maybe just percentage of folks caught up on rent payments. We're looking right now by education level, but if we wanted to look at race, ethnicity, we could do that as well, or income bracket, and help to identify some of the more vulnerable populations who are struggling to catch up on rent payments. The color of the bar is indicative of the number of respondents within that specific population to give you kind of a scale to the N of how that percentage is calculating. So overall, this dashboard has been really useful to look at comparisons of how 18 to 24-year-olds in Washington are reporting on some of these things like mental health or housing stability, food stability, in comparison to other populations of that age group across the state of Washington. And this is, again, accessible to all of you on this call to view. It is public. And again, as Away Home Washington is now hosting this in terms of doing the maintenance for updating this dashboard on a cadence, we will update this on a regular 2-week basis for you all to continue to enjoy. So thank you all for letting me talk to you today about a couple of the products that we have at Away Home Washington. And now I'm going to pass it over to Liz.
Thank you so much for joining us for Nerds Ending Youth Homelessness. I hope you have learned how we are using data to support our communities to end youth and young adult homelessness. And make sure you stay up to date with everything we are all working on across the state by following us across social media and checking out our website at Away Home. What's the web? awayhome.org.
Gonna have to get the bleeps out for this one. Oh goodness.
I'm surprised I haven't said a bad word yet.
Don't use the bleeps. There's going to be too many. Okay, now I have to start again. awayhome.org. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you learned a lot about data today and how every young person counts, and we're making them count in the data.
And that's it, I think. I didn't say goodbye, though.
Movie stars over here.
You don't know how much I'm sweating right now.
Like
The lights are
it's
on.
hot in here.
It's so hot in here.
My AC's running on like right now.
Oops. You didn't need to see that.
We can't unsee it.
Nerds.
By the way, I'm wearing the shirt and I'm wearing my shorts.
Yes.
Along with it. I so as I was like walking downstairs, I was dressed up like this, and a couple of people noticed me, and they were like, "Okay, you're wearing a shirt, an iron shirt with shorts and slippers.
Must be remote.
That's work from home."
Yeah.
Living your best life.
Yes. We won't ask you to stand up then in the coaching sink.
The question though is, did you iron your shorts?
Well, they're polyester, so I don't think they can be ironed.
How did that feel?
Awkward as always, but we got it done.
I felt less awkward than when we were doing it live.
I think there was so much stress happening before we did it live that wasn't even in my body.
I know I dissociated, I think, a little bit.
I absolutely
Then,
did.
like, Matt and Keely and Isaac were like racing around in cars and stuff, and then they were texting me. My phone was blowing up, and I was like, y'all gotta chill, because it's so distracting and so stressful. You are not making this any easier on me.
It's so funny.
I was like, who gave these folks cars? This is a nightmare. This is the worst.
Let me do that one again because I didn't think about the transition.
Killing it, Hannah.
I do have a couple dad jokes. Okay, so I collected a lot of data trying to disprove confirmation bias. The results were exactly what I expected. Right? Here's one that I actually don't understand at all. Why did the Python data scientist get arrested at customs? She was caught trying to import pandas.
Oh, Visesh will know that one. You should tell him.
You should tell Visesh that one. That's a good one.